So Manchester City have just won their 5th Premier League title, their 3rd in 4 years under Pep Guardiola, which it's not that bad, to be honest with you, and I think it's definitely fair to say that Pep Guardiola has built one of the strongest teams in the entire world. And that is why today we'll be looking at where were these 2021 Premier League winners before Pep Guardiola showed up? Where were these players 5 years ago in the 2015-2016 season? That is exactly what we'll be talking about today. Now, the way this will work is I'll be talking about the Manchester City starting 11, according to who had the most appearances in each position, and then I'll be talking about the rest of the squad, where they were 5 years ago. Now, obviously, starting off in the goalkeeper position, it has to be Ederson, who 5 years ago, his smiley face tattoo might have been the other way around, as 5 years ago, he wasn't even the best Brazilian goalkeeper in his squad, as he was second choice to the likes of Julius Cesar, the Brazilian great goalkeeper at Benfica, mainly playing for the reserve team. But Ederson finally got some first team action where Julius Cesar picked up an injury. Ederson ended up helping Benfica to their 35th league title, along with the League Cup title, and that is why in 2017, Ederson ended up moving to Manchester City for £35 million as a Claudio Bravo replacement. 10 trophies later, and about to win his second Golden Glove in the Premier League, I think Ederson can widely be considered one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and he's definitely improved his career since the Benfica days. Next up in the right back position, we've got Kyle Walker, a man ironically named with that much pace, and for many years Kyle Walker has been known to be one of the best right backs in the league. That is why he's still part of Gareth Southgate's England squad, and things were no different 5 years ago, as he was still one of the best right backs in the league, still playing for Tottenham Hotspurs at the time, and actually scored the first goal in the opening game of the 2015-2016 season versus Manchester United. Now, unfortunately, it was an own goal, but as I said at the time, still one of the best right backs in the league, and that is why in 2017 he moved to Manchester City for £50 million, making him one of the most expensive English players of all time, where once again, just like Ederson, he has won 10 trophies in that time. 10 more trophies than he would have won at Tottenham Hotspurs. Talking about expensive English defenders, next up we've got the likes of John Stones in the centre-back position, who 5 years ago, he was just a 21-year-old centre-back for Everton, coming out of a season where he just won Everton's Young Player of the Year award, and also just coming out of a season where he was nominated for the Golden Boy Award. He was one of the most high-profile young players in the Premier League at the time, and was even linked to the likes of Chelsea for £30 million, but Everton ended up rejecting that, and John Stones ended up moving to Manchester City in 2016 for £47 million, making him at the time the second most expensive English player of all time. Now, there's no lie that John Stones has not had a fantastic start at Manchester City, but as of the 2021 season, John Stones can widely be considered one of the best centre-backs in the league, and I think if you told Pep Guardiola that in the beginning of the season, he probably would have sprouted a hair. The final defender I have in this Manchester City starting 11 in the left-back position is going to be the likes of João Cancelo, who, yes, traditionally is a right-back, but has played a lot in the left-back position for Manchester City this season, especially over the likes of Zinchenko and Mendy. Now, this is the third former Benfica player in this team, funnily enough, but 5 years ago in the 2015-2016 season, Cancelo actually played for Valencia in the Liga under the savior of football himself, the greatest manager of all time, Gary Neville. It is also the same season where Cancelo scored in his Champions League debut versus Zenit St. Petersburg. Now, the second season at Valencia wasn't as successful for Cancelo. He ended up being loaned out to Inter Milan, then a permanent move to Juventus, where he then won 2 trophies. Now at Manchester City, he has just won his first ever Premier League title and his second EFL Cup. As I said, although traditionally a right back, one of the most versatile players around. He can play as a right midfielder, left midfielder, right back, left back, you name it, he can do it, and he has been spectacular this season. Now, moving on to the midfield positions, midfielder number 1 I actually have for you guys is one of the few players in the world who have played for both Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp, as it is going to be Alki Gundagan, Manchester City's top goal scorer in the Premier League this season, who 5 years ago, it was Alki Gundagan's final season at Borussia Dortmund, a team where he pretty much won everything at. I mean, he got to a Champions League final. Okay, he didn't win that, so maybe he didn't win everything, but he also won a Bundesliga with Borussia Dortmund. Unfortunately, this season, much like many other seasons in his career, he did suffer with injuries, but in 2016, he actually became Pep Guardiola's first ever signing for Manchester City, which is absolutely mental to think about, especially considering he only cost £20 million. Not a bad price, definitely a bargain considering this season, as I said, Manchester City's top goal scorer in the Premier League, 2 Premier League Player of the Month awards, he's won 3 Premier League titles, definitely been their shining star this season. For £20 million, I think that's definitely worth it. Midfielder number 2 I have for you guys is going to be one of the best in the world. You know exactly who it is. It is going to be Kevin De Bruyne, the Ginger Ninja himself, who 5 years ago was actually at Manchester City. He's the first player in this list I'm mentioning, guys, who actually was at the club 5 years ago, because the 2015-2016 season was actually his first season at Manchester City. He actually started the season, though, at Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga, where in the first game of the season, he actually got an assist for the equalizer in the DFL Super Cup, which Wolfsburg ended up winning. Because of that, now, just a few days later, Manchester City decided to spend £50 million on Kevin De Bruyne, which is an absolute bargain nowadays to think about, considering he's one of the best midfielders in the world. He's been in the Ballon d'Or top 20 5 times. He's been 3rd place in the World Cup. He's won the Premier League Player of the Year award. He's won multiple trophies. He's equaled Thierry Henry's record of 20 assists in one Premier League season. Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best midfielders in the world, considering he costs the same as Anthony Martial. It's not too bad. The third and final midfielder I have for you guys in the starting 11 is going to be Rodri, one of the more defensively minded midfielders in Pep Guardiola's system. But 5 years ago, he just had his first senior season with Villarreal, his first senior season as a player. Now, I don't have too much more to say about that other than Villarreal finished 4th on the La Liga table that season, but obviously as a defensive midfielder and an up-and-coming youngster, Rodri was a high prospect, ended up having a huge move to Atletico Madrid, where Manchester City ended up paying his £65 million release clause, where he is widely seen to be one of the best holding midfielders in the Premier League at the moment. He ended up making his debut in 2019 versus Chelsea in the Community Shield, where he ended up lifting his first piece of silverware. Not too bad, and one of the best holding midfielders in the Premier League at the moment. Now guys, I've only got 3 more attackers to talk about before I quickly run over the rest of the team where they were 5 years ago. But quickly, I want to ask you guys, if you have enjoyed up until this point, please do consider subscribing if you have not yet subscribed. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and I'd really appreciate hitting it. But the first attack I'm going to talk about in the right wing position is going to be Riyad Mahrez, who 5 years ago made football history as he was part of that Leicester City team that won the Premier League, 17 goals and 11 assists, won the Premier League Player of the Year award that season. Absolutely huge part of football history, and that is why in the 2018-2019 season, Riyad Mahrez became the most expensive African player of all time, as Manchester City spent £60 million on him. Mahrez has been a huge part of the Manchester City squad today, has won multiple trophies, and has definitely enjoyed his career up until this point. Which, guys, if you do want to know more about Riyad Mahrez's story from childhood until now, I have done a video where I talk about the entire story of Riyad Mahrez from his personal life until now. If you guys want to check that out, please check in the I thingy up above or in the description down below. Now, in terms of Manchester City's striker with the most appearances this season 5 years ago, it is going to be Gabriel Jesus, who 5 years ago, Gabriel Jesus was just a wee lad. I don't think I can say that. Can we cut that out? But Gabriel Jesus, 5 years ago in the 2015 season, had just had his first senior season as a player with Palmeiras in Brazil, where he actually won the Brazilian League Newcomer of the Year, the Brazilian League itself, along with the Copa do Brasil. A season that saw him end off with 4 goals and 3 assists in his first senior season as a player. And that is why in 2017, Manchester City decided to spend £30 million on Gabriel Jesus, where in his first season, although only playing 10 games in the Premier League, got 7 goals and 4 assists. Now today, Gabriel Jesus is not the most lethal striker in the world. He is definitely a very decent striker off the ball. Now, the final player in this Manchester City starting 11, before I quickly run over the bench, is going to be Raheem Sterling, who 5 years ago became the most expensive English player of all time, as he had just moved from Liverpool to Manchester City for £44 million. Look, despite the fact that he runs like a dinosaur trying to dry his nails, he has been very decent for Manchester City with 78 Premier League goals in total for the club. And although he's a very frustrating player to watch in terms of getting a good performance out of him, when he does play well, he is one of the best wingers in the world. Now, guys, that is the Manchester City starting 11 and where they were 5 years ago. And now I'm going to quickly run over the bench and where they were 5 years ago. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed the video so far. But player number 1 on the bench is going to be Bernardo Silva, who 5 years ago in the 2015-2016 season had won League One with AS Monaco, a team that was notorious for having Kylian Mbappe up front. The midfielder slash winger Bernardo Silva can now say that he's worked with the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo and Sergio Aguero. Not bad company to be around. And talking about Sergio Aguero, he is the second player on the bench, and the only reason he's not starting is because he has suffered with injuries once again this season. But 5 years ago, he was even a legend at Manchester City. Obviously in 2011, when he moved to Manchester City, he helped them win their first ever Premier League title, but now in 2021, he is the highest scoring foreign player in Premier League history, Manchester City's highest goal scorer of all time, the most hat-tricks in Premier League history, and many more things. 5 years ago, Sergio Aguero was a Premier League legend, and in 2021, you can definitely say the same about him. The third player on the bench is going to be the likes of Phil Foden, who 5 years ago had won his first ever league title on FIFA. He's only 20 years old now, and 5 years ago he would have been 15 years old. He only made his debut for Manchester City in 2017, becoming the youngest player ever to win the Premier League title. 5 years ago in 2015, he was part of the Manchester City Academy and is widely considered right now as one of the best youngsters in the entire world. Next up, we've got Fernandinho, Manchester City's captain, who didn't get a lot of game time this season because he is getting older, not as good as he used to be, and he has suffered a tiny bit with injury. But 5 years ago, he helped Manchester City win an EFL Cup. Now, unfortunately, it was a very quiet season other than that, but just in general, Fernandinho will go down as a legend at Manchester City, winning pretty much everything there is to win with the club. Next up on the bench, we've got Emeric Laporte, a player who's just swapped his international allegiances from France to Spain, who in the 2015-2016 season had just won the Supercopa de España with Atletico Bilbao, the club's first piece of silverware in 31 years. That is why in 2018, Manchester City decided to spend £57 million on Emeric Laporte, where in his first season at the club, he was part of the Premier League Team of the Year. Unfortunately, he has suffered a tiny bit with injuries through that, but is still a really good centre-back and scored the goal in the 2021 Carabao Cup final to win Manchester City another trophy. Next up, we've got the likes of Nathan Aka on the bench, who 5 years ago had just signed a new 5-year deal with Chelsea and then was sent out on a year-long loan to the likes of Watford, where he actually won Watford's Young Player of the Year award in the left-back position. Obviously, nowadays he's known more to be a centre-back and definitely made his name at the likes of Bournemouth, where after Bournemouth got relegated, he got a huge move to the likes of Manchester City, where he is today. Obviously, he's not a first-choice option, but when he does play, he's got a lot of quality to him. Next up, we've got Foreign Torres, who just like Phil Foden, I can't talk too much about him. He's only 21 years old, and 5 years ago, he was part of Valencia's youth team, just being promoted to the senior team. Zinchenko is next, and 5 years ago, the left back was already part of the Ukrainian national team at only 19 years old, which is absolutely insane. And 5 years ago, he just signed his first ever senior contract with Russian team Ufa. The second last player I have for you guys is going to be Benjamin Mendy. You either love him or you hate him, but 5 years ago he was in his final season at Marseille, where unfortunately he missed a lot of games due to injuries. After that he ended up moving to AS Monaco, where he ended up winning the title with the likes of Bernardo Silva, and from there became one of the most expensive left backs for Manchester City, where he doesn't get a lot of game time due to both injuries and poor performance, but has somehow managed on average a Premier League title every 16 games that he has played, along with a World Cup, which is absolutely mental to think about. And ladies and gentlemen, the final player in this Manchester City team that won the Premier League in the 2021 season, where they were 5 years ago, it is going to be Zach Steffen, the backup goalkeeper, the American goalkeeper, who only played one game in the Premier League this season, but it was a 3-1 win over Chelsea. Now the American goalkeeper was playing for Freiburg's second team, the German club second team, 5 years ago. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Those are all of the Manchester City players that won the Premier League this season with the club. This is where they were 5 years ago. And this just shows, yes, Pep Guardiola has spent a lot of money at the club, but he has brought in some quality players that have been able to fit the system. Guys, this has been Finn FYNN. Please do consider subscribing. If you're not subscribed yet, please do like the video down below. And yeah, until next time, this has been Finn FYNN. Cheers.